Assalamu alaikum.
Can you bring a water bottle?
Welcome everyone to Stamford Islamic Center. For everyone that's visiting us for the first time, or if you're a repeat visitor, welcome. And of course, for everyone in the community and the surrounding community, welcome. Assalamu alaikum. We're going to go over our plan for tonight. The topic of tonight will be the purification of the heart. Our main speaker will be Dr. Shadee Elmasry, and we will follow it with some commentary from our very own Imam, Sheikh Ousman, and then afterwards we'll open up for questions and answer session for both the brothers and sisters, and then we will conclude with Isha Salah, and dinner will be served right afterwards. For the purposes of Q&A, just for everyone to be aware, we will pass the mic around for questions and answers, and at the same time, sisters, you will see on your side of the wall, there are 2 QR codes. You can use your phone to scan it, and you can submit anonymous questions if you care to. Same thing applies for the brothers. On our side, there's just 1 QR code posted on the wall. You can use your phone and scan it with your camera, and then you can submit questions however you want. We'll try to aim to have questions kind of surrounding or focused on the topic for tonight. But if time permits, we will continue giving the questions to the sheikhs. Okay?
That's okay. Sorry. No, we don't have time for that. No, I have to.
So, Dr. Shadee Elmasry was born and raised in New Jersey. He began studying at the age of 18, traveling to a number of countries, including Egypt, Yemen, and Morocco. He did his, in addition to traditional learning, Dr. Elmasry has received an MA from the George Washington University and a PhD from the University of London, SOAS. He went on to teach at several universities, including Yale University, University of London, SOAS, Trinity College, Hartford Seminary, and Manhattanville College. Currently, he serves as scholar in residence at the New Brunswick Islamic Center in New Jersey. He's also the founder and head of Safina Society, an institution dedicated to the cause of traditional Islamic education in the West. For everyone that's here visiting us for the first time, we also want to introduce Imam Ousman Haye. He began his religious studies at the age of 12. Completed the memorization of the Quran at the age of 14. Thereafter completed his Islamic sciences at Darul Uloom and Darul Quran Sunnah in New York. Further studied in Egypt to enhance his knowledge in the Arabic language, and attained Jazak in many of the different narrations of reciting. He's currently enrolled in the IFTA program at Darul Ilm to become a mufti focused on developing to proficiently research and formulate legal responses, also known as fatwas, to both complex and everyday issues. And currently, he is our Imam, and we are blessed to have him. And he just started here in January of this year. Without further ado, Dr. Shadee.
Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. اللهم صل صلاة كاملة وسلم سلاما تاما على نبي تنحل به العقد وتنفرج به الكرب وتقضى به الحوائج وتنال به الرغائب وحسن الخواتيم ويستسقى الغمام بوجه الكريم وعلى آله. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد طب القلوب ودوائها وعافية الأبدان وشفائها ونور الأبصار وضيائها وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم صلى الله عليه وعلى آله حق قدره ومقداره العظيم. وبعد. Firstly, thank you to Raj and the community, Brother Shazad, for giving me the opportunity to come and meet you all and to talk and to share some ideas. Last time we had a very lively Q&A session. So if we have about an hour, what do we have, 45 minutes to an hour or so? Well, I'm only going to go for about 20 minutes, and then we can actually open it up to what our Imam has to say, to add, and we can have a discussion with the community. But I want to begin with a story that happened here in Connecticut about 10 years ago. There was a young man who was just starting up his life. He got married, he had a kid, and he just learned by coming to one of these events that just because you don't use something haram, you still can't sell it. So he said, lottery is part of what he sells in the store that he works for. He works in a store and they have lottery tickets. They also have some other things that have khanzir in them. And he started pondering and thinking, is this really haram or not? And so he came upon one of these talks that scared him most, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells about a man who's ash'atha aghbar, which means he's dusty and wrinkled up, his clothes is dusty and disheveled. That's the meaning of ash'atha aghbar. Yamuddu yadayhi ila sama. He puts his hands all the way up, and this is the physical position called an ibtihad. This means that you're in your most desperate state. Unlike some regular dua, you just put your hands up. But ibtihad, you put your arms up. وَيُنَادِي فِي السَّمَاءِ. He puts his arms up and he looks to the sky saying, Ya Rab, Ya Rab. The ulama take from this, the Prophet ﷺ is listing all the common and the most common reasons why Allah would answer somebody. He's putting his arms up in desperation. He's crying out for Allah. He's dusty and disheveled. He has no help. He's miserable. And yet the Prophet tells you why this person, who anybody, one of us, would help him, he doesn't get an answer. He says his food is haram, مَطْعَمُهُ مِنْ haram, وَمَشْرَبُهُ مِنْ haram, وَمَلْبَسُهُ مِنْ haram. His food is haram, his drink is haram, and his clothes is haram, which means his money is haram. Chances are, well, his drink is haram means you could just say he drinks khamr. His clothes is haram. How is it haram? Is it silk? No, it's purchased from haram. The money that he used to purchase is haram, so the clothes becomes haram. If you steal an item that's halal to use, the moment you stole it, it becomes haram to use. And why is it that Allah linked dua with income? The simple reason that your job is what you offer society all day long. Your job is what you do all day long. That means if you were to skip salah, how many minutes of the day do you pray in? If you prayed for 5 minutes, 5 times a day, that's 25 minutes. But you work for 8 hours. So 8 hours a day, every single day, you're doing haram. That's what you're putting out to the world. So what do you expect from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after that? So he heard this, and he heard how important it is that your wealth has to be halal. So he quit on the spot. And his family got nervous. How could you quit on the spot and you don't have another job? He said, because no food is better than poisonous food. And everyone seemed to get that analogy. To have no food, after an hour, you're in a certain amount of pain. After, let's say, a day of no food, you're in a certain amount of pain. But if you eat poison, very quickly you're going to be in far worse pain. So that was the analogy that he lived by. And he made his decision based upon that. Next day, he started looking for a job and doing all sorts of resume rabbit and all sorts of useless websites that don't give you any real leads. And he was walking one time, he went to a coffee shop, he found a sign, drivers wanted. And he signed up immediately. That's halal, as long as I'm driving something permitted. He calls them up, they said, what am I going to be driving? They said, people, come in. And he gets there, and he finds, strangely, it's a dentist's office. Oh, what does a driver have to do with a dentist's office? So he gets to the dentist's office, and he said, I'm here with this ad for driving. They said, yeah, go to the back. He gets in the back. The guy tells him, listen, we offer services to the poor in New Haven. You got to go there. You got to drive there and go to the bus stop and say, who here wants a free cleaning of their teeth or a free checkup? As long as you have Medicaid. You pile them into the van and you drive them to the dentist office. That's all you do. So he goes there and he yells outside and he says, who here wants free? And this first day he gets a couple, second day he starts getting good at it. And he starts using his mind at getting better at this by putting up ads, just printed from Staples, that if you want free Medicare, free dental for your kids, for yourself, text me. And he's got these strangers texting him. And then he starts making appointments. And he starts saying, first batch, I'm going to come at 9 a.m. Second batch, I'm coming at 10 a.m. This guy was systematically able to drive all these people to the dentist's office to the point that they opened up another dentist's office. And they got him another van. And he became the manager of the drivers. And he started to build their business. Because it's not that difficult to give people free dental services and transport them. This isn't rocket science. It just takes some scheduling. Soon enough, these people had 3 offices. And after 1 year, they had 3 offices. He's no longer the driver. He's the manager of this operation of bringing people in. That's all his job is, bring people in. They said, look, listen, you used to run a 7-Eleven. You used to run one of these stores. Yeah, so you know how to manage books. They said, make sure that you're spending less than we're bringing in. So one day, he was called and he said, listen, don't come into work today. So his heart sunk. Am I out? He said, no, you're not fired. Just don't come in. He's really wondering what's going on. He's doing so well. He turns the news on that night. Lo and behold, what's on the news? Their office. FBI raid on this office for Medicaid fraud. And he sees his bosses being pulled out in cuffs. He makes calls. There are only 6, 7 people run the whole place and the rest are the doctors. What's going on? FBI calls him in. He's got to come in. And they sit him down and they say, speak. What do you know? He said, all I do is bring in the people. That's all I did. They investigated him. They confiscated his phone, his computer, everything. They look at everything, and his wife is thinking to himself, subhanAllah, here we are trying to keep halal, and yet we have this tribulation upon us. Now we got to get another job. So the FBI finds he's innocent. The bookkeeping people, the finance, the billing people, and the 2 owners, they're going to jail. And it's a whole process where he's unemployed again for another few months. He gets another call after a few months. This time, it's also the FBI. But it's an accountant on the FBI. He said, listen up. He said, what is it? He said, it's your lucky day. On the org chart, everyone above you has been arrested. You're the highest remaining person in this company. And he says, listen up. There's still a company, an LLC on the books, and they still have to pay rent. You interested in running the company? He says, heck yeah, I'm interested. He said, all right, you're the boss. And the court ordered that the company goes into his name. He's now the owner of the company, of 3 offices. And he's now hiring dentists. And he's now under watch, the FBI is watching now, that you bill properly. So by leaving that one job, within a year and a few months, he's now the owner of 3 dental offices, managing them, hiring dentists, and bringing people in, and charging the government, Medicaid, for the appointments. The guy now is a multimillionaire. And he's spread these things, but that's his start, that's his origin. His origin was having left something haram. Now, why do I say this? If the topic is purification of the heart, The reason is that the starting point of all of our ibadah is our income. It's our wealth. Back in the old days, in West Africa, a group of people came to a sheikh who moved to a city. And he said, we want you to write us a little book that we can study about the heart. He came back after a year. He said, all right, I have the book. Let's study. He opens it up and it starts listing what is the nature of a contract, what is valid in a contract, what are the pillars of a contract, what invalidates a contract, what is halal to sell, what is haram to sell. They said, Sheikh, we said of the heart, not of the marketplace. He says, and what beginning of your worship can you have if your limbs are nourished from what is haram? Your limbs are nourished from the haram. Forget the heart. They came to Imam Malik and said, oh Malik, tell us about the secret knowledge of the heart. Malik became angry. He said, study the outward law first. عليكم بالعلم الظاهر فإذا عملتم به نور الله قلوبكم فعلمتم علم الباطن. Know the outward demands that Allah has upon you. What He obligated and forbade, because that's harder to do than the inward stuff. Anything that you can physically see in front of you is easier to conceptualize and deal with than something that you can't see. I tell you right now, remove najasa from your clothes and make sure that your food is halal. We could all do that. We could look at the food, we could look at our clothes, but I say remove envy from your heart. How do I see that? I can't see my envy. Where is my envy? How do I remove it from my heart? So the seen is much easier than the unseen. And the start off of Bidayat al-Hidayah, Imam al-Ghazali's book, is that we begin with the outward first and then we move in. We begin because the outward also takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of piety. And no one, in fact, if you think about it, you should never really separate between the outward and the inward. Sisters know this. You don't wear hijab, suddenly you do wear hijab. Do you know how much turmoil some people have to go through? If their family isn't supporting it, or they don't even know it, or they're in the middle of a job. Some people in the middle of their career, they make this change. So you've been working somewhere and climbing a corporate ladder, or in the pharmaceutical industry, or whatever you're in, for 10, 15 years. Everyone knows you. You come in one day with a hijab on. Everyone's going to say, what's going on? They're all going to talk about you. You don't think this has an internal turmoil for somebody? That's a big deal. That's a serious gut check and a serious calamity that you're paying psychologically and emotionally as a result of observing Allah's will and command. So nobody can really say that something is totally outward. There's always some kind of after effect. There's always some price you're paying to fulfill this. There's always a price to pay. And more, a sign of a bad times is that just doing the outward stuff of the Sharia requires a lot of inward battles. And that's the case that's where we're living in today. Just to figure out a place to pray, if you're moving, if you're traveling, if you're going somewhere, just to make sure your work is halal, your job is in the permitted. By itself, you're going to have to give up a lot of career options. How many times people tell me, listen, we got the first female sports broadcaster, hijabi. Why are we celebrating that? It's not a valid income. To earn income from games, from lahu, is not valid in any of the schools. What happened to the mic? Turn it back up again, whoever turned it. Yeah. That's not valid in any income, in any madhab, to earn money from games. First hijabi chess master. We celebrating this? Right? We just celebrate anything that's the first and that the rest of the Western world celebrates, so we're just fools. Whatever you celebrate, we're going to celebrate it with you. Not every, she's breaking barriers. Not every barrier is meant to be broken. Not every barrier is bad. Some barriers that Allah put are good for us. So We have to learn this stuff and realize that just keeping your wealth halal, you're going to make so many sacrifices. And any financial sacrifice is a spiritual sacrifice. Al-malu shaqiqur ruh. Ancient saying of the Arabs and the scholars. Money is the twin of the soul. Money is the twin of the soul. Ask anyone how painful it is to get sick versus how painful it is to get a ticket and be charged $500 for texting while driving. What would you rather? Right now, you're going to be out with the flu for the next 24 hours or get a ticket and be charged $500? Most people say, no, I'll suffer in my body a little bit. My money is more dear to me. SubhanAllah. Would you rather lose a pinky toe, okay, or get $200,000? Most people would probably sacrifice something of their body if they're going to get some money. That's how much money is important. Al-malu shaqiqur ruh. How many women put up with miserable marriages because the guy makes a lot of money, right? That's the truth. That she put up with it. That's her own life. And she'll put up with it because the guy's very wealthy, right? So anytime that following the outward law causes you to lose money, don't say that that's outward and this is inward. That is extremely inward. That is spirituality right there. Because you have to weigh. What's more important? Is Allah more important to me? Or is my dunya? And anybody can talk religion, spirituality. Today, modern spirituality is everything about feeling good, being one with yourself, being thankful, being mindful, whatever all this stuff is. Mindfulness, thankfulness, all this stuff, one with the universe. Any type of spirituality is valid. Mantras, meditation, all good until you tell that person no to your temptations. The moment you say no to someone's temptations, that religion turns into fundamentalism. That spirituality turns into something that is unacceptable, right, to the Western society. And that's why Buddhism, Richard Gere, Buddhism in Hollywood took off. It's all about becoming one with the universe, simplifying your mind, all this wonderful talk. But nothing's haram for them. Zina's haram? No. Alcohol's haram? No. Drugs, interest, riba is haram? Nothing's haram. That's why it's okay. It's all good as long as nothing says no to my desires. And the ultimate beginning of all spirituality is the ability to fight off your desires. And that's why spirituality is such a wonderful topic. But when you get into it, it's the trenches. It's war. You're at war with yourself. Spirituality is the trenches, right? Monarchies, empires, the Roman Empire is a wonderful thing. You look at it, look at these Colosseums, look at these statues, look at these amazing things they did. Look at the uniforms. The Holy Roman Empire. What built that Holy Roman Empire? Soldiers dying in the mud. Everything great has in it, behind the curtains, is war. Spirituality is a wonderful thing. But behind closed doors, you're going to have struggle with yourself, between yourself and with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Iman billah is what fuels the struggle. Now, what fuels the struggle we have to talk about? Because you can't possibly go about this life without a serious motivation. And that's what the Quran comes with, and that's what the prophets came with. The motivation to engage in a struggle is more important than anything else. If you have the motivation, all you need is some direction. But you can have all the direction in the world, and you know exactly what's right and wrong. But if you don't have a motivation, you're never going to do it. The motivation is that if you travel this path of Allah, you are going to find amazing results within the first 24 hours. Immediately. The moment you make the intention, you're going to find a result. Not even doing anything, just the intention, you will find a result. And Allah Ta'ala will surprise you in ways that you cannot imagine. وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ. He will give you rizq from which you least imagine. Rizq of what? Rizq of a check in the mail? Doesn't have to always be that. Rizq is happiness. Happiness is rizq. Who is it that gets this from where you least expect it? In other words, you will be made happy. You will be smiling at the end of this 24 hours from where you least expect it. Whoever has taqwa. Plan on traveling this path to Allah. It's called suluk, the path to Allah. And it will be something that you will get a reward. You will get a benefit. You will find something that made it worthwhile within the first day. And this will repeat every single day. Every day that you make an intention and you fight your ego, you should tell yourself, today, not tomorrow, not akhirah, today I'm going to get a reward. And you'll see every day the reward will be different. And these awliya live like this. Sheikh Muhammad al-Yaqubi used to say that he used to come home to his dad, to his family, and said, what happened to our father today? Because every day something new was happening to him. Something amazing would happen that would fill their hearts with the satisfaction that we're on the right track and we're going to be the first beneficiaries of this. So I just came upon this story recently that some youth asked their sheikh how they could help, how they could start lowering their gaze. They're addicted to looking at pictures that are haram and videos that are haram. They're addicted. And how many people are addicted to this? The sheikh said, every time you see something haram, of a video or in person, tell yourself, lower your gaze today, and today you will get a special reward from Allah. Something special will happen today. Not in 2 years, not in 2 days. On this day. Why? Because you put in the effort on this day. And Allah is generous. He rewards right away. Did not the Prophet ﷺ said, if you have an employee, pay him before the sweat dries from his brow. Will the messenger tell us to do something and Allah doesn't do that? What's harder, to sweat or to say no to your temptations? If I said to you, you had to do one thing today, lower your gaze or run a mile, or run till you sweat, or work a job till you sweat and look at whatever you want, or don't work at all and don't look at what you want. What's harder? It's far harder to say no to your desires than to put out a physical effort. Any idiot can move their body. It's easy. Say no to your desires, that's the hard part. So what's his motivation? If that's what the Prophet said, that's why the Sheikh took the qiyas. And he also took from Sayyidina Ali saying, Allah is more generous that you pay him in cash and he pays you in credit. That means you put in effort now and I get paid later on. Wait a second, I'm putting in an effort now. I'm doing something right now. Now I have to sit here and wait till die? And then to be in the grave for how long? And then to be resurrected before I can get my results, my reward? No, that's not how it works. Jannah is the everlasting reward, but it's not the only reward. You'll be rewarded here, right away. So he said, every time that your mind starts to wander and you're about to look at something haram, remember, Allah is going to reward you with something special today. Not tomorrow. Today, you'll see it. And they did it. And they came back with stories. Stories of how they are benefiting. And they asked the Shaykh, but we're afraid it's going to run out. He said, how would it run out? What does the warehouse of Allah look like? What does the warehouse of Allah look like? Is the warehouse of Allah the size of an Amazon warehouse? If Allah had a warehouse of goodies, what would it look like? They said, oh, it would be massive. He said, wouldn't be massive. It is the whole universe. That's his warehouse. You think it's going to run out? He's never going to run out. Prophet ﷺ said, look at the animals, the birds, the humans, the fish, the jinn. From all the way of the time, from the first creation, Allah has been feeding these things. He never run out. You're never running out. So never worry that this will stop, that it's like a lucky streak. No, it's a principle with Allah. It's like a law. Every day, gravity works. Drop something, fall straight to the center of the earth. The gravity doesn't work Tuesdays and then runs out. Oh, everything drops 3 days in a row. Maybe it'll run out. This is not luck. This is not a whimsical God that maybe he's in a good mood, maybe he's in a bad mood. Like your parents are like this. Parents said once, said yes on Friday, said yes on Saturday. I'm not going to ask on Sunday because, khalas, I'm using it up. Right? They got to say no at some point. That's humans. Allah is not like a human. He operates with guaranteed laws. If you do this, you will be rewarded. If you did it 1,000,000 times in a row, same thing is going to happen. Same thing is going to happen. There is not a whimsical, moody God as in the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament, everyone's getting smited. Everyone's being struck by lightning, destroyed, killed, flipped, cities flipped upside down. Then you come to the New Testament, oh, don't worry about it. God died for your sins. Take a day off. Take off for the rest of your life. Jesus died for your sins. What? On one hand, people getting smited and cities flipped upside down. Next book, we just have to relax and love God and that's it, and all our sins are forgiven. This is why those people are messed up in the head. You got a God that's has mood swings. You never know what to expect from this God. And so you have two religious communities. One has no law at all. The other's law, you can't live with it. You can't even live. All your dairy has to be in one kitchen, one fridge, and all your meat has to be in one kitchen and another fridge, and you have to have two stoves. What house can operate with two stoves, two fridges, two sinks, two counters, two ovens to separate between the meats and the dairies? So I'm going to cook the meats over there, and I got to turn over, and I have a separate set of pots completely. No tahara. You can't just rinse the pot. A separate set of pots. And every single food has to be kosher. Like we have to, what has to be halal? The animals that we eat, that's it. No, for them, everything has to be made kosher. How does it made kosher? The rabbi comes and he prays upon it. Boom, it comes kosher, and you pay him. You didn't realize this is a racket? Nothing happened. He didn't do anything to the food. He comes in, blesses the factory. Can we invent something like that? Then all these imams, at 9 in the morning, go to a factory, collect a check. Nothing. Do some dhikr. That's it. It's a racket. And you guys are accepting this racket, and the food had nothing changed that made it haram to halal. SubhanAllah. So you got one hand, a crazy set of laws that make no sense to you. On the other hand, no law at all. It's because your sense of God is not correct. You didn't understand God in the first place. With Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He does not play favorites. You do your part, you will get your reward. Guaranteed, in 1,000,000 days in a row, it's going to be the same thing. Allah is not whimsical like people. So let me stop here. My main points was that the heart and its purification begins with the outward. But the outward itself is a struggle, and it is a spiritual struggle. But most importantly is the motivation. And to know that whoever has taqwa, you will be rewarded with rizq, happiness. Rizq is a word, everyone gets happy when they hear rizq. Anything that benefits you in life is rizq. If you have a child that is healthy, and you enjoy their company, that's a rizq. If you have a friend, that's a rizq. If you have cash, that's a rizq. If you have a car that works, is a rizq. Something new of benefit will come to you every single day. Even one invitation and you had a great time for a couple hours, that's a rizq. Someone said something really nice to you, that's a rizq. Everything is a rizq, so something new will come to us every single day when we're practicing this, and it will come. Don't look for when it's going to come. It's going to come when you least expect it. That's what Allah says. Min haythu la yahtasib. The location and the timing and the nature of this gift from Allah is going to come to you. But it will be a surprise. Isn't that the joy of it? If it's predictable, then you get bored of it. Come every day and get your reward from the mailbox. But Allah makes it unpredictable. So your whole life, you're living a surprise every day. Something new is going to come out. So we gone half an hour now, and we can bring it over, the mic over to our Imam, and then we can open up for a community discussion, inshallah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله نزل أحسن الحديث كتابا متشابها مثانية تقشعر منه جلود الذين يخشون ربهم ثم تلين جلودهم وقلوبهم إلى ذكر الله وقال الله تبارك وتعالى ومن أعرض عن ذكري فإن له معيشة ضنكا ونحشره يوم القيامة أعمى. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بلغوا عني ولو آية أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. MashaAllah, the Shaykh Dr. Shadee Elmasry gave a very beautiful reminder to us. May Allah Ta'ala reward him, bless his family. I don't want to take too much time, just to stay on the theme a little bit about the purification of the heart. I want to start off with the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, wherein he said, أَلَا إِنَّ فِي الْجَسَدِ مُضْغَةً. Indeed, in the body there is a piece of flesh. إِذَا صَلُحَتْ صَلُحَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ. When this piece of flesh is pure and good, the entire body is pure and good. وَإِذَا فَسَدَتْ فَسَدَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ. And when this piece of flesh is evil, it is rotten, it is corrupted, then the entire body is rotten and corrupted. What is this piece of flesh? أَلَا وَهِيَ الْقَلْبُ. Indeed, this is the heart. Another hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَنْظُرُ إِلَى صُوَرِكُمْ وَلَا إِلَى أَجْسَامِكُمْ وَلَكِنْ يَنْظُرُ إِلَى قُلُوبِكُمْ وَأَعْمَالِكُمْ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He does not look towards your form, the way you look, towards your bodies. Many a times, 20 times, 30 times a day we are looking in the mirror. Make sure we are dressed properly. Make sure there's nothing on my face. Make sure everything looks good. My hair is combed. But Allah Ta'ala, He says, يَنْظُرُ إِلَى قُلُوبِكُمْ وَأَعْمَالِكُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He looks towards your hearts and He looks towards your a'mal. Now, anytime in the Quran and the hadith, when we see the word qalb, we always hear qalb in the hadith, in the Quran, we always see the word qalb. This is not referring to the literal physical beating of the heart. This is the physical qalb. But rather, the Quran and the hadith is referring to the state of spirituality. Anytime Allah Ta'ala, He mentions the word qalb, anytime Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions the word qalb, it is not referring to the physical heart which we can take out, which we can have a heart transplant. Rather, it is referring to the spiritual soul. Now, the soul has a body just like how the heart has a soul just like how the body has a heart. So, the soul has a heart just like how the body has a heart. Now, if the heart of the soul is corrupted, then the soul will also be corrupted. If the heart of the soul is good and rectified, then the heart and the soul will also be good and pure. Now, there are many diseases of the heart. There are many amradul qulub, which we like to call. There are many diseases of the heart, for example, jealousy, envy, hatred, animosity, always looking down on someone, anger, having ill feelings towards another. These are all amradul qulub. These are all different diseases of the heart. But there is the mother of all diseases. There is the worst of all the disease. The disease which all these other amradul qulub come out from. Now, what is that disease which is the mother of all the disease of the hearts? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls it in the Quran, qaswatul qalb. The hardness of the heart. Having a hard heart. This is the mother of all the diseases of the heart. When we have a hard heart, when we have a heart that is hard like a rock, then all the other diseases, they follow. There's no point in talking about jealousy on its own, or talking about envy on its own, or talking about hatred on its own. We have to tackle the mother. We have to tackle the mother of the disease, which is having a hard heart. When you have a hard heart, all the other diseases will pour in and gush in. Because there is no khayr that will enter into your heart. There is no nur and hidayah and guidance and light that will enter your heart if you have a hard heart. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, ثُمَّ قَسَدْ قُلُوبُكُم مِّن بَعْدِ ذَلِكَ. That talking about the previous nation, the people of Musa alayhi salam, Allah ta'ala gave them so many ni'mas. But what happened? ثُمَّ قَسَدْ قُلُوبُكُم. Their hearts became hard. فَهِيَ كَالْحِجَارَةِ. Became hard like a rock. أَوْ أَشَدُّ قَسْوَةً. Or even harder than a rock. Another ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again speaking about the previous nations, He says, فَبِمَا نَقْضِهِمْ مِيثَاقَهُمْ لَعَنَّاهُمْ وَجَعَلْنَا قُلُوبَهُمْ قَاسِيَةً. Because they broke their covenant, لَعَنَّاهُمْ, we cursed them, وَجَعَلْنَا قُلُوبَهُمْ قَاسِيَةً, and we caused their hearts to be hard. So we see Allah Ta'ala's curse is linked with having a hard heart. And wallahi, if this was the only reference in the Quran or the Hadith talking about a hard heart, then this is enough to cause us fear. And this is enough for us to cause us to ponder that we curse them and we cause their hearts to become hardened. And we cause their hearts to become hard. Allah Ta'ala is linking His curse with having a hard heart. So now we have to understand the importance of monitoring our hearts. The importance of tackling this disease of a hard heart. The importance of trying to find the symptoms of this disease. The importance of trying to find the cure of this disease. Because this disease, the mother of the disease of having a hard heart, because of this disease, all the other amrad al-qulub will come. Why? Because the defense mechanism has been broken. When you have a hard heart, there is no defense mechanism that will prevent all the other qulub, amrad al-qulub to enter the heart. When you lose that protective measure to protect your heart, then all the other amrad al-qulub will come. When that defensive mechanism is destroyed and broken, this will cause all the other amrad al-qulub to enter the hearts. When you have a hard heart, no khair will enter, but only filth will enter. The jealousy will enter, the hatred will enter, the animosity will enter. So now we have to ask ourselves, what are the symptoms of having a hard heart? How do I know that I suffer from this disease of having a hard heart? And then we have to understand, what are the causes? Why am I having a hard heart? Like for example, a person who has high cholesterol, the cause of having a high cholesterol is lack of exercise, a bad diet. This is what causes him to have a high cholesterol. Now when we have this disease of having a hard heart, what causes this disease? And then we have to understand what are the antidotes and the medicine and the prescription in order to overcome this disease. So not to take too long, not to mention too many symptoms and causes, amongst the primary symptoms of having a hard heart is simply not caring about the commandments of Allah Ta'ala. We do not care what Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala wants from us. We only care about ourselves. We do not even have the desire to learn about the commandments of Allah. We do not have the desire to implement. We are living our life completely cut off from the Sharia of Allah Ta'ala. And this is what Allah Ta'ala said in the Quran, فَبِمَا نَقْضِهِمْ مِيثَاقَهُمْ لَعَنَّاهُمْ وَجَعَلْنَا قُلُوبَهُمْ قَاسِيَةً. Because they broke their covenant. Because they went against the Sharia of Allah Ta'ala. Because they didn't follow the commandments of Allah Ta'ala, we cursed them and caused their hearts to become hard. So if it does not occur to us, if it never occurs to us to ask, is my money coming from a halal income? If it never occurs to us to ask, is what I'm doing, Allah Ta'ala, is He pleased with this? If we never think to ourselves, is it permissible for me to look at this person? Is it permissible for me to look at this person? Is it permissible for me to talk this way? Is it permissible for me to listen to that song? Is it permissible for me to go out without a hijab, with full of makeup and wearing tight clothes? Is it permissible for me to be involved in this business which causes me to have a haram income? If we do not have these thoughts, if we do not have any of these concerns, then there's a problem. Many a times we know it is haram to talk to this boy. We know it is haram to talk to this girl. We know it is haram to go to that website. We know it is haram to look at this evil thing. We know it is haram to go out without a hijab, look at non-mahram, talk to them. We know it is haram to work in this job because we are getting a haram income from this. But do we care? This is the question we have to ask ourselves. We know it is haram, but you simply do not care about the commandments of Allah. When you have this, then wallahi, this is the biggest symptom of having a hard heart. From amongst the symptoms of having a hard heart is many people, they continuously do the ibadah of Allah Ta'ala. They are worshipping Allah Ta'ala, but they do not find the enjoyment in the worship of Allah Ta'ala. The worship of Allah Ta'ala becomes a chore. The worship of Allah Ta'ala becomes a burden. The worship of Allah Ta'ala becomes an irritation rather than being the sweetness and the honey of one's life. The real believer, he finds comfort in the worship of Allah Ta'ala. There is nothing more sweet to a believer than the worship of Allah Ta'ala. If we find ourselves, our phones, we all have these different apps. Our phone, gives us a notification and we see it is Muslim Pro. All of us, many of us, we have this app downloaded. And Muslim Pro comes to us with a notification that it is time for the prayer of Maghrib. Now if we think to ourselves, Ya Allah, already? I just prayed Asr. It is already time for Maghrib. Ya Allah, so quick. Ya Allah, help us. If we find ourselves like this, when we find out it is a time for salah, and we're thinking, Ya Allah, I just prayed 5 minutes ago. Again, I have to pray. If we find ourselves dreading through the month of Ramadan, if we find ourselves not wanting to do the ibadah of Allah, and even if we do it, it is with this type of attitude, then know that you have a symptom of having a hard heart. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he would rejoice at the salah. He would tell Bilal, Arihna biha ya Bilal. Bring me the comfort and the joy of salah. Aisha radiallahu anha told us that anytime Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had a problem, had any worry, he would rush towards the salah. He would find comfort in the salah. He would calm his nerves through the salah. He will find tranquility and peace in the salah. But if we find ourselves seeing the salah as a chore, as a burden, as an irritation, then this is one of the biggest symptoms of having a hard heart as well. A last symptom to mention about having a hard heart, it is selfishness. Now we do not care about others. We only care about ourselves. Nafsi, nafsi, nafsi. We do not care about anyone else except ourselves and our immediate family members. We only care about our bank accounts being fed. We only care about our bellies being fed. But have we ever thought about the broader ummah? Have we ever thought about our Muslim brothers and sisters? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that the believers are like one body. Al-mu'minuna kal-bunyan. The believers are like a structure, a building. يَشُدُّ بَعْضُهُ بَعْضًا. They strengthen and they fortify each other. When was the last time we thought about our Muslim brothers and sisters back home who are suffering all throughout the globe? When was the last time we made dua for them? All we do is make dua for ourselves, for our money, for our food, for our immediate family. When was the last time we made dua for our Muslim brothers who are suffering around the globe? It is free to make dua. It is not like you will be charged $1 per dua, or some bill will be mailed to your house for every dua you do. You will not be charged. But we do not make this dua for other people out of selfishness. This is a symptom of the hardness of the heart. Now to the second point out of the three, what are the causes? What causes a person to have a hard heart? How does the hard heart get formed? Like we mentioned, the high cholesterol comes because of a lack of exercise and a very bad diet. What causes the heart to become hard? Number one is to turn away from the book of Allah Ta'ala. This is the primary cause of having a hard heart. There is no relationship with the Quran. It is necessary upon every single Muslim to have a regular relation with the Quran. This is why Allah Ta'ala, He says in the Quran, Allahu nazzala ahsan al-hadithi kitaban mutashabihan mathani taqsha'irru minhu juludu alladhina yakhshawna rabbahum. That Allah Ta'ala, He revealed the best of books supporting one another. تَقْشَعِرُّ مِنْهُ جُلُودُ الَّذِينَ يَخْشَوْنَ رَبَّهُم. When the people, they read the Quran, the hearts of the people and the believers, they tremble. ثُمَّ تَلِينُ جُلُودُهُمْ وَقُلُوبُهُمْ إِلَى ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. Then the hearts and the bodies, they become soft at the remembrance of Allah Ta'ala. So notice, Allah Ta'ala, He links the recitation of the Quran with having your heart softened. تقشعر منه جلود الذين يخشون ربهم ثم تلين جلودهم وقلوبهم إلى ذكر الله. When you recite the Quran, the hearts and the skins and the body, they become softened at the remembrance of Allah Ta'ala. So the number one cause of having a hard heart, it is lack of relationship with the Quran. No relationship with the Quran. The only time we can pick up the Quran is when a person passes away. So the Quran became a book of the dead rather than becoming a book of the living. We have our Quran wrapped up in 10 and 15 different book covering on the highest shelf. This is what the Quran has come in the life of a believer. How do you expect to find that joy and that softening of the heart? This is the number one cause of having a hard heart. Number two, which stems out from number one, it is similar. It is to turn away from the dhikr of Allah Ta'ala. Not to remember Allah Ta'ala, not to glorify Allah Ta'ala, not to, show your thanks and gratitude to Allah Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala, He says in the Quran, وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا. That the one who turns away from my remembrance, he will have a miserable life. وَمَنْ يَعْشُ عَنْ ذِكْرِ الرَّحْمَنِ نُقَيِّضْ لَهُ شَيْطَانًا فَهُوَ لَهُ قَرِينٌ. The one who becomes blind to the remembrance of Allah Ta'ala, Allah Ta'ala will cause a devil to accompany him and will be his companion. وَإِنَّهُمْ لَيَصُدُّونَهُمْ عَنِ السَّبِيلِ And this shaitan will take him away from the straight path. وَيَحْسَبُونَ أَنَّهُمْ مُهْتَدُونَ While they think they are doing something right. So to turn away from the dhikr of Allah, to turn away from the Quran, this is what causes the heart to become hard. And this is why Allah Ta'ala, He says, أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبِ That only through the remembrance and the dhikr of Allah Ta'ala do the hearts find enjoyment and peace and tranquility, and they become softened. From amongst the causes of having a hard heart is we are fulfilling the desires of our body. Whatever our body desires and wants, we are fulfilling. If it comes to food, drink, luxury, material, dress, car, house, you name it. We are fulfilling all the desires of our body, but we are not feeding the soul, and we are not fulfilling the desires of the soul. And this is a very big problem for the Muslims living in the West. We are surrounded by temptations. We are surrounded by materialism. We are surrounded by wealth and fame and money, to such an extent that we forget about the akhirah. And this is why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, حُبُّ الدُّنْيَا رَأْسُ كُلِّ خَطِيئَةٍ We are only indulged and engaged in the dunya, no akhirah. Love of the dunya is the root of all sins. So when we forget about the akhirah, and we are only feeding our bodily desires, this will cause the hearts to become hard. A last cause, which is painful to say, which many of our people are, involved in, we're all guilty of. It is too much vain entertainment, too much useless talks, wasting time. Us living here in the West, we have made it an art to entertain ourselves. We are entertaining ourselves to death. We are only looking for different ways to entertain ourselves. And this became the purpose of our life, how we can entertain ourselves. No one is saying you cannot enjoy yourself. No one is saying you cannot entertain yourself in this dunya, but there has to be a limit. If it becomes our purpose in life to entertain ourselves, then this is a big problem. We are only finding new ways to entertain ourselves. This is what our life has become. Our life has become a joke. Our life has become a show. Our life has become an entertainment. We are finding new ways every single day how we can entertain ourselves. We cannot sit one day and one night to spend in the ibadah of Allah Ta'ala. Every single Friday, every single Saturday, we have to be in a da'wah. We have to be, in a party. We have to be in a wedding. Every single day we are anticipating the new show that's coming out. We are waiting for the new movie, for the new song, for the new album to be released, for the new sport game to come on. So we are only finding new ways to entertain our bodies, to entertain our life. Every single night we have to watch a new movie. We are anticipating the next episode for this show. We are anticipating the next release of this rapper's song. We are anticipating the next game of the Knicks, or whatever team you guys follow here in Connecticut. We are anticipating the next football match. This is what our bodies are desiring. Only entertainment, that we forget about Allah Ta'ala. And this is why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إِيَّاكُمْ وَكَثْرَةُ الضَّحِكِ فَإِنَّ كَثْرَةَ الضَّحِكِ تُمِيتُ الْقُلُوبِ That stay away from laughing excessively, because laughing excessively will cause the hearts to die. Now you may go home and say, oh, the Imam said it is haram to laugh. This is not what we are saying. Wallahi, it is halal to laugh. You can laugh all you want, but with a limit. Of course, Rasulullah used to smile, he used to laugh. But when too much laughing and too much entertainment becomes the purpose of our life, that our lives become frivolous, and our only purpose is to entertain ourselves, and we are anticipating all the new entertainments and shows and movies and sport games that are coming on, we forget about the deen and we forget about the akhirah, and thus our life is only involved in entertainment. We forget about the akhirah, and now our hearts are hard like a rock, and no hidayah can enter. And when our hearts are hard, all these other envy, jealousy will enter as well as a result of that. So now to end off, to mention some cures, some antidotes, some prescriptions, like how a person who has high blood pressure, he has to monitor himself. So what are some cures in order to tackle this great disease that many of the people they have? Number one is muhasabatun nafs, to take account of yourself, to be aware of the condition of the heart, to be aware of the causes of these diseases, to think to yourself which disease you have. that you are a victim of these diseases. To understand and be aware of the symptoms of this disease, to be aware of the causes of this disease, to be aware of the prescription and the cures of this disease. This is the number one cure, is to have a mind to monitor ourselves. We have to monitor our hearts and our souls. Another cure, in order to beat and tackle this disease, it goes back to the number one cause, which was the Quran. We have to build a relationship and a connection with the Quran. Wallahi, look at the life of the one who has Quran and look at the life of the one who does not have the Quran. It is a difference of day and night. The one who has the Quran, his life is far more happy and his heart is far more soft than the one who has no Quran in his life. We cannot even listen to the Quran. Our hearts cannot accept the Quran. Why? Because we are moved by other things. We are moved by that song. We are moved by that dirty rap music. We are moved by the news. We are not moved by the recitation of the Quran. Start to listen to the Quran. Start to build that connection with the Quran. Many of us, we open the Quran, 2-3 ayat, we close it. Start to get that connection with the Quran and you will see the barakah in your life and you will see your heart softening. And this is what Allah Ta'ala said, ثُمَّ تَلِينُ جُلُودُهُمْ وَقُلُوبُهُمْ إِلَىٰ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. When you recite the Quran, your hearts will become soft. This is a prime antidote and a prime prescription in order to get the cure of the hearts. A couple last cures I want to mention is we have to spend time with the righteous people. We have to spend time with the pious people. When we spend time with those people whose hearts are hard, we think it is normal. When we spend time with the one who is always listening to music, we think it is normal. When we spend time with that boy or girl who's always talking to the opposite gender, we think it is normal. Come to the masjid. You will see the softening of the heart. And one last cure to mention, which is very important, is to make abundant dua. When was the last time we made dua for our hearts? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam used to make dua. Allahumma ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala ta'atik, ala dinik. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam used to make dua for the hearts. Make dua to Allah to cure our hearts, to purify our hearts. This is why Allah Ta'ala, He said, فَلَوْلَا إِذْ جَاءَهُمْ بَأْسُنَا تَضَرَّعُوا. That when our punishment came, why did they not make dua? وَلَكِنْ قَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ. But their hearts became hard. الدُّعَاءُ سِلَاحُ الْمُؤْمِنِ. Dua is the weapon of the believer. Make abundant dua to Allah to give you a qalbi salim, to give you a pure heart and to protect you from all the amrad al-qulub. So my dear respected brothers and elders and sisters, we ask Allah Ta'ala to cure us from this disease. And the reason why we mention this disease of the hardness of the heart is because this is the mother of all the disease of causing pain and hardening of the heart. So may Allah Ta'ala give us all the tawfiq to what has been said. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Jazakumullahu khair.
Okay, brothers, can you hear me? Okay, so we're going to open it up for questions and answers. Does anyone want the mic for the questions?
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Shadee. Welcome back to the community. MashaAllah, good to see you.
My pleasure, thank you.
And also to meet your son running around. He's running around like a king.
Yeah.
MashaAllah. Two questions. Number one is, as you know, there are always issues popping up, like what happened in Sweden.
Yeah.
Quran's copies were burned and the government allowed it, and then we have issues like that. Question is, how should Muslims react to that? What should we do? What is the appropriate answer for that? Second question is with what you mentioned about the hijab for the girls. If the girls are struggling at middle school or high school trying to get the hijab on, what would you advise them?
So for the first question, if you haven't heard that some guy in Sweden, he did this thing where he's going to burn the Quran in front of the Turkish embassy, and the police there approved of his whatever it is, and then they protected him and he did it, and they said this is freedom of speech. The way you have to look at it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He wants something to rise up, He keeps it on your mind and He puts it in the media all the time. And Islam, Muslims, and the Quran are literally in the news all the time. Whether it's good or bad, it doesn't make a difference. Of course it makes a difference in itself, but the effect is still there. People, when Allah wants a word to reach something, right, and Islam to get on people's mind, He will get it to their mind, however, in whatever means. The fact that this person hates the Quran this much, it must be that the Quran has an impact. And that subconsciously is what everyone's going to come away with. He's burning the Quran. Well, that means he's something important, right? That's why Allah allows us. He allows people. They maligned the Prophet. Abu Lahab maligned the Prophet, peace be upon him. So we shouldn't only look at how to stop this person, because truth is we have no power. Why do we have no power? Because Allah took it away from us. Because we had power and we misused it. Maybe not us, maybe our forefathers. Anytime that you're powerless, that's a type of punishment. It is because our forefathers probably misused their power. And Allah has a will in the dunya. He has a will in this world that we probably would have went one way. Allah wants the world to go a different way for a wisdom that He knows. So He takes power away from those who would have stopped it. So I would only look at it from a positive light. Subconsciously, anyone who reads, oh, they're burning the Quran. Well, you're not going to burn something useless. You're only going to burn something important. And we could build on this medium. And we could build on this. I wouldn't even go the route of resistance. It's pointless. And resistance is for the people who are losing. You never want to be in the defensive and the resistance. No, don't do this. That means subconsciously, he's a doer and you're not. You're weak. You don't have power. So I don't think that it's our approach is going to be to yell and have boycotts. And to me, that's all meaningless. If it's not meaningless, show me last time it worked. When did that stuff affect somebody? No, you just got angry and nothing happened. So these types of things, you could jump on it, but jump on it for a positive purpose and realize the will of Allah in all these things. And you need to look at what is the murad of Allah in the matter when you have no power, because otherwise you just get frustrated. And you see Allah has a great will for this. Right? He has a great will for it. Like, there are many other bad things. Why are there tyrants in the East? Why are all the Eastern countries miserable? They're supposedly the Muslim countries. Well, maybe Allah wants the people to leave and fill the Western lands with Muslim people. It happened. That's what worked. It worked. And that's what we have. 100 million Muslims in the Western Hemisphere and Australia. From what? All because of those tyrants and all those destroyed countries and ravaged nations. All those people left. Right? Pakistan, when there was the partition broke down, or when they established the partition, and all the Muslims came from India to Pakistan, Pakistan was like overpopulated. That's why the number one most traveled people of the world as immigrants are Pakistanis. Anywhere you go in the world, there's going to be Pakistanis because of the partition. Because now your country got flooded. That's the wisdom of Allah. Now it's flooded. There's too many people here. So they left. Right? It's Allah's wisdom. Major countries like Egypt, Syria, Palestine, big populations, can't live there anymore. Life is miserable. So they left. Well, look at what is Allah's will in the matter. And you'll actually calm down and you'll see, actually, this looks bad, but there's a lot of wisdom behind it. Al-Khidr, he did things that looked terrible, but there's a lot of wisdom behind it. So the actions of Allah are always have an amazing wisdom, even if they look terrible in front of us. So that's the perspective I like to take when you are powerless. If, of course, if you had power, then we would have no problem. We would have punishments for this. We would punish the first person who did it so severely that no one would have ever done it since, right? But we have no power. So the second question is, anytime you're having trouble doing something in the Sharia, all you need to do is hang out with the people who have done it. That's how simple life is. All of life is like this. If you have a weight problem, hang out with people who are skinny, who run and do exercise. Hang out with them, become friends with them. You will eventually start running too. Because they're talk about, oh, I'm jogging. Oh, what are you? I'm jogging. Then you were like, all right, I'm going to jog too. Next thing, they're by a treadmill. If you hang out with people, you start to, they rub off on you. It's as if every person has like a temperature. And you're absorbing from that temperature. If you want to memorize the Quran, you don't sit alone at home trying to memorize Quran. You'll fail, you'll get depressed. Go hang out with other people memorize the Quran. Go hang out 2-3 times a week in the Hifz class. Just hang out. Guarantee you, within a month or two, you're going to get the book. I want to be a Hafiz as well. Right? That's what happens. So constant exposure. This is what the Imam said. Being with the Salihin. Be with those people who have done it. And this applies for everything. For every worldly matter, too. If you want to be with people who do well in school, hang out with people who do well in school. If you want to be good in business, start looking for the community who's good in business. Hang out with them, be friends with them. You'll learn a thing or two, you'll become one of them soon. So that's the idea.
So I'd like to add on to the second question about the hijab, which goes obviously for the sisters. I'm just going to mention one story, and I'll try to make it as brief as possible. And through this story, hundreds and thousands of women began to wear the hijab. Not only did they begin to wear the hijab, but they began to wear the hijab proudly. Now, what is this story? The story is of a family of 5 in Syria. 3 daughters, 1 father, and 1 mother. Now, this family of 5 who were living in Syria, they wanted to travel to America. So what happened was they were getting ready to go to America. And what happened was the father of the family, he went first to California. So he can, get the house, get everything ready. And then the 3 daughters and the mother will come follow. No problem. So what happened was the father, he went to California and he stayed there getting everything ready. And the 3 daughters and the mother is now back in Syria. And they have a flight to California, but they had a stop in New York. So now they got onto their flight in Syria and they stopped in New York. 3 daughters and 1 mother. So now, when they came to, the patrols and whatnot, the security in the airport, they said, we have to take a picture for your green card in order for you to take the next flight to California. So now they said, in order for you to travel and for us to take your picture, you had to remove your hijab. This was the condition. And obviously, they're in a foreign country, right? They're all girls, they don't know the language. They're scared. So the mother was first. She took off her hijab. She took the picture for the green card. And then she went. The next daughter came, the oldest. The next daughter came. She took off her hijab. They took the picture. Go on, no problem. The second daughter came. She took off her hijab. She took the picture for the green card so they can take their flight and go to their destination was California. Now the third daughter came, the youngest. She said, I am not taking off my hijab. Now the mother and the sisters, they are mad at her. Stop being so stubborn. We're in a foreign country. Just take your hijab off, take the picture quickly, and let's go on our way. Stop, doing this. She said, Wallahi, I don't want to be in a country which will not let me practice my religious beliefs. I'm not going to take off my hijab, no matter what they say. So they took her to the room. Sometimes when we have that X, we have that when we go on flying, and then they take us to that room, trying to investigate because there's something up with you. They took her to that room. In that room, the mother came. Daughter, please take off your hijab. I miss my husband. He's in California. We're in a foreign country. Take off your hijab. No, I'm not. The eldest daughter came. Take off your hijab, please. No, I'm not. The second daughter came. Please take off your hijab. We're going to miss our flight. You're causing such a big problem to us. Take off your hijab. No, I'm not going to take off my hijab. No matter who you bring back here, I'm not going to take off my hijab. The security came. The security guards, the top of the people, the TSA, whatever you want to call them, they came. It was filled just to take her hijab off for the picture. So 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours negotiating, the mother coming back and forth, the daughters, the security guards, the head of the airport, whatever you want to call them, they all came. She was not budging. She was not taking off her hijab. So they said, all right, you know what, little girl, you won. Go ahead, take the picture of the green card with your hijab on, no problem. So then she said, Alhamdulillah. So she took the picture with her hijab on. And now what happened was, they missed the flight. They had a boarding flight, a connecting flight to California, and they missed the flight. Now the mother is bugging her. You see, because of you, we missed the flight. What's going to happen now? She was hearing it from her mother and her sisters, Because of you, we missed a flight. All because of you. What's wrong with you? We're coming to a new country. We don't know the language, and this is the problem you're putting us through. She's like, no problem. I'm not going to give up my religious belief for anyone or for any country. So they missed a flight. And she's hearing it from her mom, and she's hearing it from her sisters and everyone. And now what happened was somehow they stayed for a while, and they found a flight to go to California. So now when the family got to California and they walked to their father or the husband of the mother, he's crying, he's weeping. They're asking him, why are you crying? What's the problem? We're gonna make it. No one's gonna kidnap us or anything. He said, you know that flight which you were supposed to be on, flight 191? This was the deadliest crash in the history of Delta. Every single passenger in that flight passed away. Over 200 people. Flight number 191, which you were supposed to take to come, crashed, and every single person died. This is why I thought you weren't gonna make it. So now when I saw your beautiful faces, I am crying. I didn't know you were gonna come. That flight which you were supposed to take was the deadliest flight in all of the history of Delta. And then they all looked at the little girl. You saved us. She said, Wallahi, my hijab saved us. And now because of her, all the family and then her grandkids and all those, her nieces were narrating the story that because of the bravery of my aunt, we are here today. So because of this story, many women, they began to wear the hijab and they began to wear it proudly. This is the power of the hijab. This is the power of sticking toward your religion. So I hope this also encourages our sisters as well. And I hope that answered the question.
Open up if the sisters want to ask any questions. Does anyone? Okay, anyone from the brother's side? Before I start reading off the QA.
Assalamu alaikum. Sheikh, I was listening to your story about the man who was, quit his job because of lottery and that kind of thing. And alhamdulillah, I feel like that was very clear that this is haram and that he knew that. And so, alhamdulillah, he did it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah rewarded him. We live in a society where a lot of people work in an industry that seems like a gray area. I know a lot of people that work in the banking industry, or the insurance industry. They have good jobs, they provide for their family, and they're good people. They are involved with the masjid. And so, I've been in situations where people encourage, my children are young, they're looking for a job. They go, we should go work in the bank. And personally, because of my spirituality, I believe this is not a good, healthy thing, spiritually healthy place for myself. Alhamdulillah, I work in IT, I work in a petroleum industry, and alhamdulillah, I feel like this is a good industry to be involved with. But especially Connecticut, the insurance capital of the world, So I'm just curious about a person who is interested in purification. Is this something that they need to ponder upon? And what should they be thinking about when it comes to that kind of thing?
Well, it's very simple. The whole theme of what I spoke of is that the first step to the heart has to go through the body. It's the outward, then the inward. Right? You can't go to the core of the earth without first drilling through the top of the earth. And the most important deed of the body after salah is to purify your income. Right? So your job has to be halal. When Allah speaks to us and gives law to us, there's no mystery. It's very clear what His law is. The word bayan and the root of bayan in the Quran, to make things clear, is over 200 times in the different forms. So the very simple rule when it comes to jobs is that if the industry is a permitted industry, in other words, the nature of the company is doing something that is permitted, then we're allowed to work in that industry. But we're not allowed to do the thing that's haram in that industry. So let's say there's a restaurant, I work in seafood. Seafood is halal. The entire menu may not be halal. So I may only serve the seafood and I don't touch what's haram. Okay? Now, if the industry is haram, like wine and alcohol, then you cannot do a single thing. You can't even change a light bulb for them. Can't cut their grass. You can't even touch it. That's the basic rule. So now you ask the question, is the insurance industry halal or haram? There's no controversy on this. There is political controversy, but there's no Shadee controversy. The political and social controversy is that we all know people who work in the insurance industry. I know people who work in the insurance industry. People ask me all the time, how are you saying it's halal, it's haram, so-and-so does it. I say, a lot of people I know do things that are haram. I don't have acquaintances and friendships solely with people in the masjid who are 100% halal. Otherwise, you'd have very few friends, right? So I know people, I'm friendly with people, and I pray for them, and I hope they do good, and they're doing a lot of haram things. That's what the masjid's for. You go to a hospital, there's a bunch of sick people, right? You go to a jail, there's people who did things wrong. So every one of us is going to be doing something wrong at some point in time, and we're going to need the support of the community to come out of it. But the insurance as a contract is an invalid contract on the basis of riba and gharam. It's a money for money deal, and it's on top of that, it's an unknown amount of money for a known amount of money. I know what I'm paying every month, but I don't know what I'm getting. On top of that, if I got something from them, it would be riba. 2 strikes. So then why we all have insurance? Because car insurance becomes permitted for us to take because the state requires it. And cars are become an obligation almost, in a sense. This is what we have called fath al-dhariya, opening. There's sadd al-dhariya and fath al-dhariya. So if I can only get to fulfill my obligations by a car, then having a car is an obligation. So therefore, if the state requires me to have insurance, I have no choice. Then we also have life and limb. When does haram become halal? If literal life and limb is at stake. Home insurance, health insurance, life and limb is at stake. It's not far-fetched at all to say that one accident in your house, like a burst pipe, could cost you $80,000, cost you $30,000. Most people today don't have $30,000 to pay an accident. So that if life and limb, you'd be on the street if you didn't have some of these insurances. They become halal for you on that basis only. So that is something that became halal only, but its origin is haram. So it's still, nonetheless, still forbidden to work. Now the question is, can I work in a situation where, can I work in a service that is originally haram that became halal? And the answer is no. Pork is halal for you if you're stuck on an island and there's nothing but wild pigs like Lord of the Flies, right? But that doesn't mean I can go there and be in the pork business, right? You still can't be in the pork business. This is fiqh. None of this is by Sharia controversial. It's socially controversial. And so how do we navigate that? If it's by Sharia, has ijma', there's not even ijma', it's qat'i. It's by nas. And you don't even need ijma'. Okay? Ijma' does not place on there when there's nas. Ijma' is on interpreted matters. So when that's the case, it's the imam's job to clarify the sharia to people, but also to not alienate someone who's making a mistake. So if you're in the insurance business, okay, so you're doing something haram. Are you special to be told you're not doing anything haram? You're not special. So you're doing something haram. We're here to help you know that and motivate you to get off of it. That's how simple it is, right? Someone told me the other day, do you believe if I'm not a Muslim and I don't believe in Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but I'm a good guy, that I'm going to hell? I said, yes. But you special or something? That you don't go to hell? Of course you can go to hellfire, right? And it could be far worse than you imagine. You're not special. There are rules. What entitlement is this, right? Okay? If you want to know what the rules are, these are the rules. And there's emotion, and so, so-and-so, that's fine. So-and-so is committing sins. Is he special? Right? Everyone commits sins of different types. We're here to help you recognize that and get motivated to change it. So that's how we deal with industries. The banking industry, I would say, it's sort of 50-50. They are providing an essential service to society, which is they keep your money, right? Which in the old days used to be a security guard, right? With a vault and locks, and real money was there. Now it's just like numbers on screens. And there's only 10% of the numbers on the screen that they have to have in the bank. And who knows even if that's applied anymore. Probably way less than that. But, so I think the banking industry, you can probably debate it. That they are providing an essential service to society. We all use it. And we're not using it on a fetwa. We're using it on a permitted basis. It's permitted for me to put my money here, and then I could cash it out and use it however I want, right? So it is an essential service. Now the other ribawi parts of it, probably that's how they make the most of their money. That part we wouldn't be able to be involved in. All right, next question.
Okay. For the interest of time, I'm going to try to read off some of the
All right,
questions that were submitted.
let's do a rapid fire.
Okay.
If that's what you want. Yeah.
These are not going to be the simplest of questions. So I'll start off with reading, what do I do if there's someone who wronged me and I can't forgive them? Is it haram to not forgive them?
Firstly, your conception of forgiveness is wrong. Forgiveness can only come after justice is within reach. And you got your knife on his neck, then you can decide to forgive him. So you're not experiencing forgiveness versus not. Firstly, you don't have to forgive anybody. I don't have to forgive anybody. I'm not obligated to forgive anyone. وَلَكُمْ فِي الْقِصَاصِ hayat. So Allah says, so I don't have to forgive anybody, and that is not one of the signs of a hard heart. Am I right? You talked about qaswat al-qulub. Now, if you stole $10 from me, and come on, please forgive me. No, I don't want to forgive you. I want the $10 back. Is that qaswat al-qulub? It's not at all. Justice is the beginning of everything. So if you want justice, you're either going to get it in this world, or you wait until the Yawm al-Qiyamah and you get it in Yawm al-Qiyamah. It's hard, but tough. Well, you have no choice, right? Forgiveness means that I have justice, I'm about to take the $10, and I said, listen, if you needed it, keep the $10. But I had it. I had the chance to take it. That's forgiveness. Secondly, what the person's really talking about is that it's very hard to hold anger in your heart. And you may feel, this is actually what you're talking about. You may feel that I'm actually burdening myself. That's a tafsir we have to make. You may not forgive them, but you have to understand everything happens by the will of Allah, and you have to try to change your perspective. Look at what positive may come out of this to heal your heart. Because to be boiling of anger is your problem, not forgiveness or justice. You're boiling of anger, that's the problem. And the solution to your problem is to realize, this happened to me for a reason. There has to be a wisdom that I could extract from this. There has to be a wisdom. And there has to be a benefit. If you view it like that, you will find the benefit, and you'll find the wisdom, and you'll no longer be angry from them. But you still are allowed to take justice, in this life or the next.
Okay. I'm going to try to summarize a few questions, because they kind of overlap, but it might be tying to the same answer. The method, or how do we focus on purifying the heart? Is it through doing nafil acts? Is it through dhikr, which is more important, dealing with feelings and thoughts that Allah doesn't like, such as envy, hatred, arrogance, showing off, or thinking of oneself's high deeds, hard-heartedness?
This is how you do it. If you want to clean a house, you have to turn all the lights on first, right? That light is the dhikrillah. And the best of dhikrillah, the foundation is the Quran. But it's like the foundation is the Quran, but the light in the building is dhikr. And the beginner should busy themselves with La ilaha illallah. That means all day and all night you should be saying La ilaha illallah, and you should get counters, something to count with, that you could set goals for yourself. And every time you feel your heart is hardening, say La ilaha illallah again. But the foundation of all dhikr is the Quran. Dhikr without Quran is like trying to build a building straight on the ground. It's not going to be strong. But if you dig it in a foundation, that's the strength. Okay, so these two things are extremely important. When you progress in this and you keep doing this, now eventually you'll start to recognize the envy inside yourself. Why? Because you're going to start to, you literally will start to feel, it feels wrong. And the fitrah becomes pure. Once your fitrah becomes pure, you know in yourself, and this is where the Prophet ﷺ said, what is the bad? ما حاك في الصدر وخشيت أن يطلع عليه الناس. It bothers me in my heart. But whose heart? The clean heart. So clean the heart with dhikr, and then your heart will direct you about these subtle things such as envy and hatred. But recourse to books of knowledge. Because as we just saw, this person, I think, I'm assuming, and many people do, they conflated anger with forgiveness. These two are not, knowledge will separate these things for you. So, but clean out that heart with a lot of Quran and dhikr, and then do you have your dhikr gatherings here?
Yes.
It's very important. Public dhikr is extremely important. People don't know how to make dhikr. And if they know how to make dhikr, they don't have the discipline to sit in it. But if you had a public dhikr sessions in which people sit properly and read from a schedule like a tartib, they'll do it. And once they do it in the gatherings, then they'll do it at home. Next.
So I guess this probably ties to a question of how do I motivate myself to actually enjoy prayer? Or another question is sometimes I lack motivation to pray. How can I be consistent with it?
Well, it's very simply, who are you standing in front of? And what does he possess? And what is his offering? I don't think anybody here, there's a millionaire giving out money. Do you need motivation for that? No one needs motivation. Guys, there's a man, he's giving out brides. Women, there's a guy, he's giving out grooms. Wonderful grooms, he's giving them out. Do you need motivation for this? So think of the greatness of the one you're standing in front of, right? The one in which you're standing in front of, that greatness, you're standing in front of that. And if you can't conceptualize that, we have amazing pictures of nature that shows you how grand this world is and how grand the universe is. And you realize, I'm going to talk to the one who made all of that. And the only reason people don't get it is because they don't ask. Ask and you shall receive. It's in the Bible and it's in the Quran. Ask and you shall receive. Try it. Next.
So for the purposes of purification and our upcoming Ramadan, what's the best way to prepare?
Do you want to take this? Preparation for Ramadan is to do the things that you're going to do in Ramadan. It's very simple. So fast nawafil and read more Quran.
Right, so since you're here, I believe you brought brothers from Jersey?
Yeah.
And we were just wondering, since you brought up the idea of public dhikr, is it worthwhile for us to engage in one for tonight and end it with a dua before we lead to Isha?
Yes, we could do that, inshallah. Let's do it.
Okay. For the interest of time, should we transition to that? Unless the sisters, do you guys have any specific questions? Anyone have a question from the sister side? Okay.
Oh yeah, if our brothers can come up, anyone who wants to do this can come up, inshallah. Should we just sit like this? Should we sit like this, or should we make rows?
We can. Do you want to?
Let's do rows. All right, let me show you.